like, okay, well, now that I understand it, I've exhausted all the possibilities with my previous equipment. And it's not me that is holding myself back. It is the equipment. Now's the right time to buy the equipment. Because if it's me, then I need to work myself more. You know what I mean? I need to up my skills.
Hi, and welcome to the Your Story Studios podcast, a podcast where we talk about all things content creation. And today on the show, I'm joined by a man who needs absolutely no introduction. But for those who may not know who you are you and what are you doing here?
Hi guys, I'm Dan. Thanks for having me. I'm an audio professional. I work in all things creative, I guess. I started with music, ended up in the film industry, do a lot of live sound work as well. Pretty much anything audio is my bag. I love anything to do with sound.
Awesome. Well, Dan, tell me, how did you start your creative journey?
Well, I think it started with music. You know, my mum and dad. I had music instruments all around all the time. I started with drums and guitar, bass, vocals, kind of picked it all up, and I recorded my first album completely by myself when I was 11. So that was like the introduction.
What year was that?
2003.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And the technology was
Very different. It was like a small tape recorder thing, 4-track. And I mean, that's all I had, so it was just whatever I could do, maybe one microphone on the drum kit and just play around with it. But there's like so many songs that I recorded from that ended up on this album for like a school project. And that was my first introduction to recording music, my own music. So from there, I guess I just took it further. I ended up recording 2 more albums just by myself, my own music sort of journey. And then the next step of that was writing books and just all kinds of, it wasn't enough to just do one thing. I loved it all. Anything creative, anything narrative driven. And then eventually I think I turned that into filmmaking as well. It was just like that is the full and all-encompassing art that makes sense of all of those things, So that's where I kind of ended up. Yeah.
Awesome. So that brings us up to today.
I would say, yeah.
Awesome. Well, tell me, what are you doing today?
These days, I do a lot of live sound, DJing, that kind of stuff as well. But I do a lot of studio. So most of the time it's post-production for films. I do a lot of commercials and different things like that as well. That could be a short film that's like 30 seconds long for a TV spot, or it could be a narrative-driven thing, or a full feature film.
Yeah.
So anything, yeah.
Awesome. Talk me through the full feature film.
Okay. I mean, it's a big process, obviously, and it can take sometimes years. Like I've worked on projects that ended up being 3, 4, 5 years long of work on that, mainly because of independent budgets, they're typically on the lower side. But, we sort of end up spending a lot more time on them, just over a lot of period of time as well. So those tend to go for a lot longer, but I've been doing that with a group of people that, we sort of do different parts of it each. And re-recording mixing is really my love. So it's putting all the elements together in surround sound and Dolby Atmos. I'm sure we'll get to that. And yeah, that's kind of my thing. It's making something out of lots of different things.
What was the main thing that drew you to doing this type of audio production?
I think that when I was writing my own music and when I started writing books and just all kinds of different ways to create things, all of them independently had something I loved about them, but it was a film that is using all of them, like I said before, all encompassing into one idea, and it's much bigger context and you can show so much more, and that emotional transference is just so much bigger. So that's what I was always looking for, I think. It was a way for me to express myself. But then making a film is all of those things all at once, all together. So it's really every sense, every emotional, thing coming out all at once. So that was my thing. I wanted to do something that felt a lot more real, a lot more just a biggest experience I could.
Yeah, it's great to have that creative drive, but then as a business owner, as someone that's making this their full-time job, you need to think about the business side. How have you navigated that?
It has been a wild ride, and being sort of a one-man band in that sense as a sole trader, it took a long time before I could actually go out on my own. So I was working for a lot of different places. One was the most recent was a warehouse that, I was doing sort of metal fabrication and different things like that, working on like lasers. It was just a lot of fun. It was interesting, but it wasn't at all the right direction. And I think what really took me to take that big step and go out on my own, do my own thing, was that I felt uncomfortable enough finally that I was like, I have to do this. I'll never do it if I don't do it now. So I took that jump, and it was really, really difficult. But that step took me to places I never thought were possible. Now it's just, I can't imagine what my life would be like if I didn't do that. So I'm just so much more happy, to do what I want to do on my own, my own way.
Yeah.
So I think that was the biggest thing. I had to do it my own way.
Yeah. And if someone's listening right now, do you have any tips on how to take that jump? Is it just jump, or is there any wise words that you have to make you want to do that jump?
Absolutely. Well, I think it's too hard a thing to just jump. You probably have to have a bit of a setup first. So before I did that, I was running my own studio like after hours, and there's this sort of period where I was working a full-time job, and then I'll come home and then work another whole job in the studio, do as much as I could to just, separate from the other people or just, stand out in my own way and develop my own sort of face, for what people would see and what I wanted to show people. So that all happened in the meantime while I was preparing to make that jump. So I would say to other people, if you were thinking about doing something on your own or making a big jump like that, make sure you've taken the time and done the work to set yourself up for that, so that when you do finally jump, it's not just totally in the deep end without any preparation.
Yeah, and you need clients as well. So how did you get your initial clients?
When I was writing my first book, the reason I got to film was like that I was writing it and I was like, I'm not sure, this isn't hitting hard enough for me as a book. I want to take it to be a film. And I didn't know anything about making a film. So I was like, well, I need to reach out to some other people that do know and maybe break this down, make a small thing or whatever, and just learn about it. So I wrote a shorter script, and this was my short directing little area. I didn't do much of that, but I did start this way and reached out to a lot of people on Start Now. And at that point, I found lots of people that were willing to help, and just, it was awesome. I developed a lot of really cool relationships. And we made those things for nearly no money. And it was just a lot of fun, a lot of learning. And those people, we developed friendships. That was like a perfect networking situation where those people are now still my friends, but also my clients. And that was the starting point to give me a chance. And that really took it to the next level, I think, because once I had something to go off, it was something to begin with. That then turned into things I can show, like a show reel, and continue on. And it was the beginning I needed. So now, people have not only seen that, but all the other work that I've done. And I think it's sort of natural now. And it's no longer a hard thing to think of, people, needing that service, and I might be the right person for the job. And it certainly has shown me that my fear of maybe I'm not good enough for this is no longer a problem holding me back, because it's like, no, I think I got this. I can do good work, and my integrity is intact, and it's like I'm doing it for the right reasons. I know I am. That translates, I think, and being authentic, is probably the biggest tip I can give. Be yourself, be whatever you want to be, and people will find you.
Yeah, that's great advice. Let's talk about some of the projects that you're finding yourself doing today. What are the projects that you are drawn towards and you really like to do?
Well, it's funny. I've been working in the live entertainment scene since I was 17. So that started with, being in bands and meeting a lot of engineers at different gigs. And then I stumbled across one particular engineer. His name's Nigel. He has his own company called Fedora Productions, and we have become great friends since then. And I've been working with him for half my life now. And he got me into the live sound stuff. And all the things that I do now are kind of based around having that as well. So it's not just the studio, it's also events and DJing professionally as well since I was 17 too. So all of that stuff is like a half. I kind of do studio, I'll then be doing DJing and live, and it's lighting and it's staging and it's all those things. Recently, to answer your question more, I've been doing a lot of, sort of workshops for the local councils, particularly in the area of, training young people to get started in this sort of stuff. It's people that maybe don't have the necessary tools or opportunities to learn about it in a practical way. So we've built these programs so that, they get a chance to have a look at a studio. What does it do? How does it work? And play around with some live equipment and lighting and have some fun, but also learn some stuff. And I really want to do more of that, I think, because it's, that's become a huge part of what I do as well. So it's actually teaching.
Was that a shock to you?
I did not expect that I would be a teacher. Absolutely not. But so yes, I think it is definitely a shock. I've found that I really enjoy it. It's fun. I get along with all the guys. It's quite a rewarding thing, to see somebody who's maybe a little timid or not so sure of themselves. It's ages, from 15 to 25 kind of thing. And they're not sure what they want to do. They don't really have, a direction yet, which is fair enough. But this kind of hopefully can give them an idea of where you can go. And I suppose I'm a bit of a example of I wasn't very good at school and things like that. But then I found my own way eventually. And doing what I loved seemed to be the obvious thing. It's like, why do something you hate? Find something that you do like and make that your reality.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's someone that's listening or watching today and they're thinking, oh, I don't like school, I don't want to go to university or something like that, they don't have to go to university these days. They can go to the University of YouTube and watch a few videos and then discover something that they're passionate about and then just start doing it. Start emailing people that are already in the industry or in the area that they want to work in and just, do the networking thing.
Yeah.
And say, hey, I'm happy to help out. And then hopefully they'll hear back from them and they can bypass the whole education path and make their own path.
Exactly. Yeah. I've found that, so many people are feeling trapped by the system. And that system works for a lot of people, but some people it doesn't really fit for. And that's okay. I think you can still do something amazing if you sort of follow your heart, It sounds cliche, but it is true. And I've definitely felt that when I really put all of my effort into, what I wanted to do, the way I wanted to do it, just that fit my personality and my aspirations, that's where things worked. So give yourself a chance, do something that you really care about.
Awesome. Yeah, great advice. And you mentioned before when you're doing DJing, that's obviously an audio side of thing, but you also mentioned lighting.
Yes.
Is that something you're passionate about or is it a necessary evil?
I don't do it often. It's not something that is always the go, but it is part of, what we do. Even just, using a DMX controller and running basic, park hands and things like that, maybe some effects as well. There's things like smoke and the sparklers and some fireworks type stuff as well, which is a lot of fun, which we don't get to play with a lot, but it is fun for the big ones. We do a lot of festivals and, community events. Also a lot of venues around Melbourne as well. But when we are doing it, I do love it. And it is a lot of fun, especially if you know the songs, because you can now do it to the song and it just hits that much harder for the audience. So I think it's very important and it's a really cool part of the job.
Yeah, great. So it sounds like there are a lot of skills that you've acquired over the years in your creative journey. What's the main skill that you're working towards today? And talk me through that.
Ooh, there's so many things that I love about all of this. Like it's, I don't know if I could pick just one that is, the underlining one, but I think the one that I probably do the most or see myself doing for the longest would be the studio because it's where I started and it's sort of the most fulfilling, I think. And this is where I could go maybe into the Dolby Atmos stuff.
Yeah, so my audience right now might hear that and be like, what's that?
What does that mean?
Tell me, Dan, what is it?
So Dolby Atmos is an evolution of surround sound. With stereo, you have two speakers, left and right. Mono would be just the single, one channel. And then with 5.1, you introduce a center speaker for the dialogue usually, and then two surrounds and a subwoofer channel. And then, it keeps going. The more speakers you add to surround sound, you have more places to put things. And, you sort of spread out your mix, whether it's for music or usually films, throughout that mix. And there's sort of do's and don'ts about what you usually use those things for. But undeniably, you are putting sound into a speaker, and that is the decision-making process. With Dolby Atmos, it's a little bit different because it's no longer about which speaker you put it into. It's more about the coordinates within a three-dimensional space. So because of that, those coordinates and the ratios between where the objects are, which they're called objects, those points, how that works is, that those can be scaled up and down. So it doesn't matter what system you're listening to it on, it works exactly the same way. So if you have 3 speakers, 5 speakers, 10 speakers, 60 speakers in a cinema, it doesn't matter. That same mix will correlate and use those ratios from the mix using this way of doing it to work on any system. So it sort of fixes the problem that surround sound had. And that's why it's sort of being adopted by everyone. Even music now it's all Dolby Atmos. So that no matter where you are listening to it, no matter what your consumer or playback device is capable of doing, you are getting the best possible playback, making use of what you have, which is the best. So that is the most fun I've ever had making music, making films. I mix everything in Dolby Atmos if I can. It's just the fullest experience I can think of for sound as an experience.
Great. So it's not the future, it's now.
Absolutely now. Yeah, 100%. I mean, people talk about it as, future-proofing things. And that's certainly true. I think, we've already proven, there's like 3 billion devices in the world now that have Dolby Atmos compatibility. Like your phone has it, there are cars that have it. Playback devices for your home theater or all that, they're all compatible as well now. The fact that there's so many ways to consume it, it's no longer a question of if it's here to stay. It definitely is. And so because of that, it makes sense to use that if you can, because it fixes all those problems, like I said, but it also is just the best possible experience. Because what it also means is there's not just speakers all around you, there's speakers above you. And you have, the minimum is typically 12 speakers for mixing at least, but you can have any variation of that.
Awesome. Well, we're going to do a whole episode on this.
Awesome.
And we'll do a deep dive. So for people that want to hear more about this, make sure you like and subscribe this video if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're following this show, because we're going to have a future episode with Dan all about Dolby Atmos. And talking about the future, what do you see for yourself in the future?
I think, a lot of the stuff that I'm doing now, I've been doing for so long now that it's just become part of my life. It's part of my routine, but it's also, it's some of the things I love the most about my life is this kind of work. I think it's going to be very strange if any of them drop off. I think DJing is a staple. I've loved that for so long, and it's, I do a lot of corporate stuff. I do a lot of, weddings and things like that as well. And so I think events are always going to be in my future, just forever. I think that'll never change. In the studio particularly as well. I have a studio at home, work a lot around different places in Melbourne. So I think that's very much staying. The only thing I can see possibly dropping off might be the live stuff, just because, as I get older, that it's quite demanding on the body. But other than that, it is a love of mine as well. So I feel like I'm just going to keep doing exactly what I'm doing, and hopefully it will just even grow even more. Yeah, in the coming years, just doing more of this. So I think that's what I want to keep doing.
Great. And what is it particularly about events that you love?
The thing that really gets me about events is when you go and see a band or an artist or whoever. If you know the songs and you're a diehard fan, this hits a lot harder. I've actually talked about this on my podcast, but
do you want to plug your podcast right now?
I totally can. Yeah. Okay. So if you like this kind of talk, gear, anything about Dolby Atmos or anything creative, very similar to this podcast as well. It's called Beyond Stereo, the Dolby Atmos podcast. And yeah, we talk about kind of anything in the creative world. So there's a podcast episode about this as well. So go check that out with Matt Wickens. But yeah, so we were just talking about, the best things about events, the reason why they can hit so hard and you get so energized by them. And I think the reason is because, when you go and the band's songs, you really resonate, and you've got the big loud sound system and they're right in front of you, and it's like all nostalgic to hear the songs. And then there's the effects and the lighting and the whole showmanship of the whole thing. That just hits so hard if you're open to it. And that feeling, that's my favorite thing about events. I think I'm looking for that in everything I do. And I get it at events, I definitely do. And then there's films that can make you feel things that you didn't even know you could feel. Like there's things that are just like, oh my goodness, that is exactly, it's like it was written for me. And, music can do that. And even books can do that. Like that's the art in general, to transfer that emotional, value to the audience. And when you really feel that, that's where it's at. That's exactly what I'm looking for in this industry. And that's why I love events. I'm looking for that. And I get it really easily at events, I think, because I'm just so open to how that can transcend.
And with the events, do you get a kind of rush, I guess, knowing that it all plays out in real time, and if something goes wrong, you've got to fix it right there and then? It's not like a feature film where if something goes wrong, we'll fix it in post. It's no, this is happening right now to a big room of people. Talk me through that process.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's true at a weddings as well as any DJ event.
One shot.
That is their big day. Yeah, you cannot stuff that up. And look, that's a lot of pressure, but it's also part of the fun. Yeah, I think getting it right or knowing exactly what they want is part of the skill that you sort of learn. And even live events like with bands playing, things like that, it's very much the same. And I think there's definitely a bit of a rush to do that. And you do have, when I'm on side of stage doing monitors or something, it feels a lot more like that than out front. I think the reason is because you're right there waiting for something to go wrong and you can see everything. And also you don't know how, like you might not necessarily be able to see the audience, or you can't see how people are reacting or if anything's wrong, because what's on stage is totally different from how it sounds out in the front. But then, as the front of house engineer, that is a bit more carefree. It feels good. And I think the reason is because all you're getting is what the audience is getting. You see them vibing out. They're all jumping around. It's awesome. And that energy is just there. So you'd never know if there's an issue. You know what I mean? I think that's more fun. But it's definitely stressful sometimes.
Yeah. And do you have a favorite genre of music to work with?
Live events, like with bands playing, I would say like heavier music is more on my radar. But then again, look, I've done anything from jazz trio, acoustic acts, folk, country, rock, pop, R&B, everything. So I kind of love it all. And maybe being a DJ has helped me become accustomed to like just lots of kinds of music. You can't really favor something if you're a DJ because
it's not about you, it's about the people.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of DJs, probably, particularly in the club scenes, people come to see that kind of music for that kind of DJ, and that's more accepted. But, if you're doing private events or mobile DJing where, you kind of bring the show to their event, you really need to play to them. And it's reading the crowd, knowing what they want. And there's a lot of conversation before that as well. You know what they're kind of looking for. That can change in a heartbeat. Like if someone requests something and it's like, that's not in my list. You got to be able to read the room and think on your feet and know what they want to hear before they do. That's a thing. That's a real hard thing.
Yeah, read their mind quicker, stupid.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. Yeah, like if one song works, usually now, any one song that's playing right now that they are vibing to, I can think of 20 songs that will go with it that make sense. And I'm thinking about things like, does it blend well? Is it in the same key or not? How am I going to transition this? I'm trying to create that vibe, like when I was talking about the live events, that rush, that whole excitement of being at a live event. I want to create that for my audience. So they go, oh my God, I didn't even see that coming. And I love this song. And then, oh my God, I haven't heard this in ages. I want all of that. So it's, you got to think on your feet for sure. But I like all music though.
Yeah, great. And I saw on social media recently, someone posted a reel asking quite genuinely, what do DJs actually do when they're up there? Are they just turning the volume up and down? Like Dan, what do DJs actually do?
I think if I could put it to one sentence, a DJ's job is kind of like what I was saying before, is to predict what a mood will be for the audience. This could be based on age group, even women to men ratio, that can change things. You can kind of tell by people what people are wearing, even, which is a bit weird to judge people like that, but it does kind of help to sort of get an idea. And that
if they're wearing
totally,
specific band t-shirts
stuff
or something.
like that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not to be just judgmental, but yeah, totally. And I think you can sort of predict what will work, and you can try things and play around a little bit with it. And there's a lot of songs that kind of overlap multiple genres. So those are like the testers. And then if something works, okay, I can move into something else, or you kind of figure it out. But I think what people are doing when they're fiddling with the knobs.
What is this?
That's the thing. Okay. What they're doing is they're trying out, they're practicing their transition, or they are playing with effects. It could be that. But usually people sort of assume that the DJ's just listening to the same thing that the audience is. They're not. They're listening to the next song. It's working out what the next song is going to be, how it's going to blend with the one that's playing. So you can, you have a mixer or whatever you're using. People use laptops with controllers now, or, it could be CDJs, whatever. But no matter what, you've got multiple channels. So you can play one song now, and then you've got another channel, and you're blending the two constantly. So it really just feels like one big song as a set.
One continuing experience, as opposed to, all right, that was the end of that song, and now it's this one.
Exactly, yeah. Like on Spotify, the song ends, there's a bit of silence, and that just kills the mood. Mm-hmm. So our job is to make it seamless and make it feel like one big riding wave that of experience. So I guess
do you like to have those highs and lows, or is it all rise?
No, it's definitely dynamic, 100%. So I would say, like, sometimes it's about blending things as comfortably as possible. Sometimes it's the dramatic change that makes it exciting. I've done things like I'm playing an energetic house, heavy sort of dirty house kind of stuff, and really, really heavy drops and things like that. People are loving that, and it's more of a club scene. And then I can just go into, all right, this one's a slow dance for all the couples, and I'm playing Perfect by Ed Sheeran, and that can be next to each other. That can totally work, or it can totally not work.
Yeah.
Usually it works.
Yeah,
and
great.
It's because that song is associated with people's wedding day songs, and or whatever. And it's sort of it's a completely different vibe. So if you MC it and you can sort of hype them to be aware of that, it's part of the show. And then all the couples come on the floor, of course, and you can play a couple of slow songs. So it's definitely rises and dips. And I think that's really important for the set. It's same as a band, to be dynamic like that, because otherwise people get tired. Too much of any one thing is going to be annoying after a while.
Yeah, and then that's when they walk off the floor and go sit down, have a drink or whatever. Yeah.
There's actually a thing about that, which is in clubs, they have this unwritten rule, which probably a lot of people don't know about. But if you're at a club and they're playing a bunch of music that's, all in one genre, or it's just banger after banger, and then all of a sudden it just goes to a kind of weaker song, and you're like, why'd they do that? It's to feed the bar.
Yep.
And I don't know if everyone knows that, but the idea is they've been dancing for a while, but no one's at the bar because I'm playing so many bangers. So now I've got to give it a rest, let these guys get their energy back and spend some money on the bar. It's like a little tip to the venue, and it's we definitely do things like that to give people a rest, and it's just part of the dynamic experience as well. Because otherwise people will stay on the floor and then they run out of energy, and that's the end of the night.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Yeah.
Well, I think I have a greater appreciation for DJs now, so thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
And to finish off today's episode, Dan, do you have any words of wisdom for our audience?
I think that there's probably plenty of things I could say here, but the one thing that I kind of touched on before that has helped me the most in running my business or going through any of these different avenues was always just to be authentic to whatever I really felt I wanted to be, and whenever I was hiding, behind a wall or putting a shield up saying like, I'm not ready to do that because of this, or those kind of things just kind of limited me on anything I was doing. I always felt like if I could only have this thing, then I'd be able to do this. And then I just realized that there's no time, there's no thing that I could ever have that will make it the right time. It's about me realizing I want to do something, and to be authentic to myself, I need to try this. And so I think, trying to be as authentic as you can, and just being, keeping your integrity and being a kind person. And if you can deliver a skill and service to someone, awesome. If you can't, that's okay. But don't say you can, try and do the best you can at anything, you're doing. And there's kind of no negatives in that. If you just do the best you can and try and do it with the best intentions for yourself and for the people around you, then you can't go wrong.
Yeah. With your experience, did you find that when you were saying, if only I had that thing, I would be able to do this, you eventually got that thing
Absolutely.
and then nothing changed, or what happened?
That is an interesting one. So, I have a few stories like that. So it's usually gear, So I think somebody goes, all right, I really need this preamp or this microphone or this thing that will change my life or this camera, whatever it is. And I think the one thing that I learned that I now treat everything with is that make sure if it's okay to want that thing and you can have that. However,
The right tool for the job.
absolutely. But make sure you've exhausted everything you can from previous first, because there's no point having that big flashy thing if you don't even know how to use it. Is one.
Yep.
But also
you don't have the clients.
Well, that's it. Yeah. You have to, like when I made that album at 11, all I had was a tape recorder. I didn't wait till I had $1 million studio. Whatever you've got, I think is enough to start. I really wanted to have a certain preamp. So 1073 Neve preamp, beautiful sounds. Everyone talks about them. I didn't really know what the difference was, but I was kind of like, well, I've got to have it because it's, everyone says that's the way to go. I played around with one before I bought it, and I was like, okay, well, it doesn't sound that much different. I didn't even know what I was hearing. And so I decided, well, it's a waste of money. And the thing is, thank goodness I did, because later, it took me like years probably to really appreciate what that thing is. And it wasn't just the flashy thing. If I had just done it when everyone said, oh, you should have one and done it, I wouldn't have been using it correctly. It wouldn't have been, doing what it should be doing. And so that it is a waste of money then. So thank goodness I had the foresight then to go, look, I probably shouldn't now because it's a waste of money now. But a couple of years later, I learnt the value of it and what it actually can do. And I'm like, okay, well, now that I understand it, I've exhausted all the possibilities with my previous equipment. And it's not me that is holding myself back. It is the equipment. Now's the right time to buy the equipment. Because if it's me, then I need to work myself more. You know what I mean? I need to up my skills. That can't be the reason you buy equipment, because that will never fix that problem. So you have to make sure that you are not the problem. You're not holding yourself back. You have got the skills. And then the equipment might be the thing that can take you to the next level, but only then.
Great words of wisdom, Dan. Thank you very much for joining us today on the Your Story Studios podcast.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me.